Okay, what if I told you that you could literally tap away your stress? I know, it sounds a little bit like something out of a sci-fi movie, right? But that is the promise behind this really fascinating technique called EFT tapping. It's a kind of psychological acupressure, and believe me, it is gaining some serious attention. I mean, just think about it for a second. Being able to manage those feelings of anxiety or emotional distress, maybe even physical pain, with nothing more than your own fingertips. No special equipment, no pills. That's the big idea behind EFT. And, over the next few minutes, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to break down how it all works. So let's get into the specifics. The official name is the Emotional Freedom Technique, or EFT for short. Now, you might hear people call it tapping or psychological acupressure, but don't get confused. It's all the same thing. It's an alternative treatment for both emotional distress and physical pain. All right, so here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to cover what EFT tapping even is and the theory behind it. Then, I'll walk you through a super simple 5-step guide. After that, we'll ask the big question. Does it actually work? We'll look at the research. And we'll finish up with some key questions and takeaways. Sound good? Let's dive in. Okay, so first things first. What exactly is this technique? And, what's the big idea behind it? What makes it tick? So, the guy who developed this, Gary Craig, he built the entire thing on one single powerful idea. And it's this. All negative emotions and physical pain are caused by a disruption in your body's energy. That's it. So the goal of EFT? It's simply to restore that balance. If this is starting to sound a little familiar, you're probably thinking of acupuncture. And yeah, that's a great comparison. Both of these practices focus on what are called meridian points. You can think of them as energy hotspots all over your body. But here's the huge difference. Acupuncture, it uses needles. With EFT, you just use simple fingertip tapping to apply that pressure and get the energy flowing again. All right, so I bet you're wondering how this all actually works in practice, right? Let's do it. Let's walk through the 5 simple steps of a basic EFT tapping sequence. So the whole process is broken down into 5 pretty clear stages. First up, you identify the issue. Then you test its initial intensity. After that, you create what's called the setup phrase. Step 4 is the actual tapping sequence. And then finally, you test the intensity again at the end. Okay, this first step is so important. You have to focus on just one specific issue at a time. You can't just be vaguely stressed. You got to pinpoint it. Let's say, for example, it's a fear of public speaking. Once you have that, you rate how intense that fear feels right now on a scale from 0 to 10. This gives you a starting point, a benchmark, so you can see if things are changing. All right, now for a really key ingredient, the setup phrase. This thing is so powerful, it actually does 2 jobs at once. First, it makes you acknowledge the problem head on, and second, at the exact same time, it makes you affirm that you accept yourself anyway. The classic template goes like this. Even though I have this fear or problem, I deeply and completely accept myself. And this brings us to a super important rule. Your phrase has to be about how the problem makes you feel. It can't be about someone else. So for example, you wouldn't say, even though my mother is sick. That's about her. Instead, you'd focus on your reaction like, even though I am so sad that my mother is sick, I deeply and completely accept myself. See the difference? The focus always has to be on your own feelings. Okay, now we get to the fun part, the tapping itself. The sequence covers 9 main points. You're going to start by tapping the side of your hand. People call it the karate chop spot. From there, you move to the top of your head, then your eyebrow, the side of the eye, under your nose, your chin, the beginning of your collarbone, and finally, right under your arm. So now you know the how, but let's get to the million-dollar question. Does this tapping thing actually work? Let's dig into the research and see what the science has to say about it. Well, one of the most compelling pieces of evidence we have comes from a big study back in 2013. Researchers looked at how EFT affected a group of war veterans dealing with PTSD. I mean, a really tough-to-treat condition. They compared EFT tapping to the standard care veterans usually get, and honestly, the results were pretty stunning. Get this, after just a few weeks of treatment, more than half of the veterans in the EFT group no longer met the clinical criteria for PTSD. I mean, think about that. For people who have been through so much trauma, that is an absolutely life-changing result. And that's not all. It wasn't just about the official PTSD diagnosis. The veterans who did the EFT tapping also said they felt a huge drop in their overall psychological stress, and that was in just 1 month. And the research definitely doesn't stop with PTSD. A big review in 2016 found that EFT can significantly lower anxiety scores. More recently, we've seen studies showing it can boost self-esteem in nurses and even help ease the incredible stress that healthcare workers are under. Now, look, researchers all agree more studies are needed, for sure, but these early results, they're incredibly promising. So I'm guessing at this point, you might be thinking, maybe I should try this. Before you do, let's just quickly run through a couple of common questions and the main takeaways. Okay, the number one question on pretty much everyone's mind is this. Is EFT tapping safe? Can I just do this on my own? And the answer, based on all the research, is a pretty clear yes. EFT is considered a really safe, non-invasive practice. I mean, no major side effects have ever been reported in the studies. Some people say they feel a little lightheaded or maybe some tingling, but that's really about it. Here's another one we hear a lot. What about crying? What if you start tapping and you just get really emotional? Is that normal? Oh, absolutely. Yes. In fact, a lot of practitioners actually see that as a really positive sign. Crying during or after a tapping session, that's often seen as a healthy release of all those pent-up emotions. And really, that's kind of the whole point, to kickstart that healing process. So let's wrap this up. What's the bottom line here? Well, EFT is basically psychological acupressure. It uses a simple 5-step process to tap on those energy points, just like acupuncture, but without any needles. The research is showing some seriously impressive results for things like PTSD, and it looks really promising for anxiety and stress too. It's a safe, alternative tool that, might just be worth exploring. So we've gone through the theory, we've walked through the steps, we've looked at the science. The only question left now is the one you have to answer for yourself. Could this really simple but powerful technique be a key for you to unlocking your own emotional balance? It's definitely something to think about.